Want to thank everyone for joining us today. My name is Kate McQuaid, and I am the VP of Revenue at ChartRequest. And today we're joined by the Senior VP of Operations, Everett Steele, to talk through a little bit of information about see the work to fix the work, and about turning the release of information bottlenecks into goals and to speed up turnaround time, simplify compliance, and improve operations overall. So next slide, please. In this webinar, we're going to go through a couple different steps here. Everett's going to walk us through about how to turn bottlenecks into goals, coaching with a single playbook and kind of what that means and outcomes, tying operations to outcomes, and then we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A and next steps once we get there. So next slide, please. And I'll turn it over to you, Everett.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kate, and thanks everybody for joining us. Really excited to share with you all today kind of a little bit about how ChartRequest does this and the operational framework we've invented for ourselves, as well as the sort of expertise that we share with our clients on a daily basis. And, this is not a pure sales pitch. I encourage everyone to ask questions, learn more about how you can improve your operations as healthcare providers, healthcare information specialists, et cetera. I am always, probably to a fault, delighted to have these conversations and share what I can. I am very passionate about this industry, and I'm very passionate about the work we do and ultimately bringing positive care to patients. So we'll just dive right in. I think the crux of this slide, really the crux of this whole conversation is if you have a disorganized health information, release of information process, it is not a question of if those errors or those lack of process will come and bite you in the butt eventually. It is a question of when it will happen and how negative the impacts will be on your business and on your patients. And, that is why we invent these systems and processes to protect ourselves and better serve our patients. At the very high level, HIPAA, federal regulations require release of information, medical records that are duly authorized, accurately authorized within 30 days of receipt of the request. Throughout this year and last, Health and Human Services have been pushing out memorandums and policy updates that are telling us that they are going to continue cracking down on what they call information blocking, which is holding records longer than 30 days or failing to release them in that time frame. And these information blocking violations can come with a number of penalties, including financial ones. So at a very high level, it is in your best interest to get your operations running smoothly and efficiently to avoid that level of scrutiny, of investigation, and of potential, financial penalties. Spinning right off that is the actual financial implications, right? If you are slow to release records, if you inaccurately release records, you will be faced with denials from reimbursements, from insurance companies. Many of these denials are not recoverable. This is revenue that your business is losing in a very real, impactful manner. And I know that no one wants that for their practice, right? It doesn't matter if you're a large healthcare system or a single provider shop, you are going to hurt when this happens. And most importantly to everyone on this call, without a doubt, is just patient care, the quality of patient care, right? Slow release of information causes issues. Care coordination is critical. It's a critical step in the value-based care chain for the patients that we all care about. I've had many times myself where you show up at a specialist and they don't have the right charts, the up-to-date encounter notes. They don't have the data they need to provide you the best care. It's a pain in the butt for you because you have to go back and recount your medical history. It's a pain for them. It slows down care, and it's just frustrating for everyone. And worst of all, it can lead to incorrect patient care, and incorrect patient care can lead to some of the worst outcomes we can have, right? Degradation to patient health and negative health outcomes. And that is something that is top of mind, I know, for everyone on this call, everyone at ChartRequest, and something that we spend a lot of time thinking about how we can help solve. So there are myriad negative implications of not having a well-oiled, highly functional release of information practice and a health information architecture across your practice. And so in this conversation, I would just like to share some of the ways that we have seen the system that we use be transformative, not just for our clients, but for folks we consult with, folks we talk to in the industry, and share some of these best practices for the benefit of your business, yourselves, and your patients. So I think we can probably slide over to the next slide from here, please. Yeah, awesome. Okay, so what does a breakdown of data sharing really look like, and what drives it? We think broadly there's kind of three big buckets. One is just the tedium of manual workflows. You show me a health information professional working in the United States today, and I will show you someone who is likely drowning in spreadsheets, drowning in manually managed fax queues, and drowning in emails. This is a huge issue. It is a huge opportunity for risk, for incorrect handling, for breach, and for gaps in care, delays, and just overall quality of life for the people doing this work. And I'll actually drop down. That's a good segue to the next, is the staffing challenges. So many of the practices that we talk to at conventions, on the phone, in general, are struggling with staffing, whether it's hiring the right people or it's the people that they have maybe not being specifically hired to manage health information, but being kind of forced into the role by a lack of other support, lack of people doing it, et cetera. And so these staffing gaps not only can prevent the best caliber of patient care, but they lead to significant burnout, and they lead to folks who you have hired to provide patient care. Your nurses, your administrators, your care coordinators are doing things that they were not hired to do, taking them away from the thing that they are not only trained to do, but the thing that they are passionate about, and the thing that they have joined your team to do. And then finally, just request backlogs in general, right? We see, depending on your specialty, you will have seasonal spikes in volume. You will have audits, and we kind of go through a standard, audit season. These big spikes in volume massively slow down your team. They require you to then pull in people from, other operational areas in the business to sometimes try and climb out from under that, pile of audits, pile of, seasonal requests, forms, back to school, disability, all the things that hit your business. And there are, myriad implications, right? As these things build up, secondary and tertiary after effects pile on as well. And so these are kind of three big buckets that we see impacting so many people in the industry and so many practices. And, these seem very challenging, but they're not insurmountable. And so over the next, 10, 20 minutes, however long here, we will talk through kind of not only how to recognize these and how to mitigate their negative impacts, but how to get around them and how to build operational systems that help you to not get in these situations in the first place. So let's go one more slide over. Awesome. So one of the things we believe at ChartRequest, this is one of our sort of driving ethos, is you have to measure what matters. And if you're not measuring, you don't know if you're meeting the expectations of your team, of your patients, et cetera. And so these are kind of five key performance indicators or KPIs that we think are kind of North Star guiding metrics that any practice who does information release should be thinking about on a regular basis. And I'll talk very quickly through these. For most folks here, this probably won't be radical new information, but at the top is just average turnaround time. We know we have a federal mandate to release records with, due authorization within 30 days of receipt. If you don't know how long it's taking you, I would wager you are probably not meeting that KPI. You are not meeting that standard regularly. Another is just requests completed. Going back to the staffing issue, how frequently do we hear from people that my team is overloaded, my team is overworked, and we say, well, how many requests are y'all completing in a week? And they say, I have no idea. Well, how do you know if they're overworked? How do you know how much of their daily, 40 hours a week or whatever it may be is dedicated to this if you don't know what the actual output of their efforts are? It's very hard to fix what you can't measure and you can't evaluate. The other, and these go hand in hand, is just new requests. What is your volume? Is it steady at 15 new requests a week? Is it steady 6 months out of the year and all over the place the next 6? Is audit season kicking you in the butt 2 or 3 months out of the year? If you don't have a way of knowing that, it means you can't make smart hiring decisions. You can't staff to the the needs of your requester community, whether they be legal or patients, audits, et cetera. And you just don't know where you're going. So how the heck would you know when you get there? And then, if you think about sort of the timing and the pacing just of requests, right? What is your oldest request? Has it been sitting there for 30 days? Has it been sitting there for 90 days? Why? If you don't know, then you can't answer that question. And then generally, how many are sitting in there over 30 days? And what, more importantly, does that number represent as a portion, as a percentage of your total requests, right? If you know you have 100 pending requests and 90 of them are over 30 days, that is a pretty good indicator there is a significant breakdown in your release of information funnel. So these are all things that we think a lot about at ChartRequest. We will get much more into metrics kind of further down the line. Thank you. I'll just keep sliding on here. So how do we kind of take these metrics that we craft for our individual businesses, our individual practices, and operationalize these in a way that allows us to make positive change, right? And there's kind of four big blocks of things we do. One, someone has to own it. There is someone on your team who should own each metric. And maybe it's the same person for all five. Maybe it's individual people. Maybe someone is fielding these requests. Maybe someone is logging into a system. Maybe someone is making sure that aging is not hitting that 30-day window. The second really is benchmarking, right? If you don't know what your team's capacity is, it is impossible to know when they are at it, or when they are underutilized, or when they are stretched so thin that they are going to burn out and they're going to walk out one day, right? And we see this happen, right? People throw their hands up and just say, I can't do this anymore. I have a KPI to meet of doing 50 requests a week, and right now I'm being asked to do 200. Unless we bring more people on, I cannot meet these benchmarks or these goals rather. And the next step is the goals, right? Saying, hey, that number, we've historically thought it was 30, but maybe it's 50, maybe it's 20, and then we resource against that. And the other, and we will talk about this in greater detail shortly here, but it's the monitoring week over week. And then maybe it's not week over week for your business, maybe it's month over month, maybe it's quarterly. Whatever it is, whatever cadence you're on, you have to look at these numbers regularly. You have to truthfully and honestly evaluate them as leaders in the organization and say, these are accurate. We are reporting valid information here. And we all believe that these are the right things to track, the right people own them, and that these are achievable goals. And we will get kind of more into that down the line. But, again, I just want to stress so much. At ChartRequest, we live by the metrics. We have a gigantic dashboard of data we look at every single day at all levels of the organization. We report on it. We hold ourselves accountable to it. And we focus on measuring what matters. And that is a really big driving thing that I think every business, whether it's healthcare or other, could strongly benefit from. All right. Can we jump to the next one, please?
Yeah, actually, before you start on that one, Everett, you brought up a couple of really good points, and I just wanted to kind of jump in with a question from our attendees. One of them that came up was, based on your work with other providers, what is the biggest transformation you've seen with a practice that's been struggling with ROI, finally puts into a standard practice and technology in place? Like, what are the biggest transformations you're seeing?
That's a great question. I think ultimately it's almost a quality of life improvement, right? So, I talk to a lot of people in the industry, right? Constantly having these conversations, and we always ask the question, like we talk about these KPIs, and we ask them, we say, hey, how many requests are you doing a week? How many are you guys receiving? How many are you processing? What's your average turnaround time? What is the SLA? What is the service level agreement that you have set internally with this? And 9 out of 10 times they say, I don't know. And I joke with kind of our sales team about this, not infrequently. If they can give you really good answers to those 5 questions, you probably don't need to have much more conversation because they're doing a great job. But most of the time people can't, right? And we have, whether it's a very small practice with a handful of providers, or a multi-location, multi-state practice who start adopting the systems and the practices and principally the reporting tools that we provide. And we can see a shift in the happiness level and the contentment and the satisfaction of their HIM staff, right? People who were stressed so much that they were pulling their hair out, to getting on our weekly check-in calls and saying, hey, what's the biggest problem in your life right now? And they say, nothing related to ROI. And we say, that's great. I'm glad that we've taken that pain off of you. I'm glad we've operationalized it away in such a manner that your business is running better. And now you, whether you be the provider or the health information specialist or nurse practitioners, PAs, whomever it is in the practice, you can focus on the things that you really, really care about. And so it's interesting to me that this is just such a universal truth, ranging from any practice you can think of, small to large. It is truly a quality of life impact that in turn drives increases in revenue, increase in productivity, staff retention, decreased burnout, et cetera, et cetera. It is a simple fix that drives significant organizational change.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Thanks.
That's a great question there. So, talking about a playbook, I'm a big sports guy, and I will spare everyone in the audience a litany of mixed up sports metaphors, but a playbook is critical. At ChartRequest, we operate on a playbook. It is detailed. It links countless documents, countless, operational manuals and SOPs, and et cetera. But the idea is if everyone's not playing on the same sheet of music, if everyone's not playing to the same playbook, you are not going to have streamlined, efficient, effective operations. And so there's kind of three big bucket things that we really look for organizationally when we are revising and editing and working with our playbook. One is just aligning our business goals with what we're measuring. And so, it's a little bit different for a services company like ChartRequest than it is for a medical practice, but ultimately it is aligning ourselves on if these are our quarterly, annual, or long-term business goals, whether they be revenue goals, patient seen, et cetera, are we measuring the things that tell us if we're on track to get there or not? And again, if we're not measuring it, we are definitely not going to get there. And what goes along with that is an awareness, sort of an acute, keen awareness of, are we measuring outcomes that we care about, or are we measuring activities that just sort of generally make us feel like we're doing stuff, all right? And so, so frequently, we see practices or other folks who are struggling with, they feel like they're doing a lot of work, but they really can't codify that into numbers, right? They don't have hard goals. They don't have hard benchmarks. They don't have well-defined KPIs. So they're busy, and people love saying that they're busy, but are they actually productive? And so really tailoring your business to look at outcomes instead of activities is how you bring it back to, are you doing the best that you can? Are there places that you have gaps? Are there places where you need to fill with people, with resources, with technology, with process, so on and so forth? I think the next one in there is really just a standardization. Again, if not one person, or if no two people in your team can list the same priority or list the same process for how they field medical records release requests, or how they release that information back, how they track it, how they do it. If no two people are doing it the same way, you are never going to consistently do it well, because there's always going to be gaps. There's always going to be turnover in personnel. There's going to be changes in systems. And without standardization, you will never give patients or requesters the quality of service that I know everyone on this call holds their businesses to, right? And the other, and this is probably the biggest one, is ownership and accountability. If you have a line item on a spreadsheet that says, this is our goal in this specific, metric category, and there's not a human being's name right next to it, nobody owns that. And no one feels empowered to fix it, and no one feels pressure to fix it when it's off track, right? And we'll talk a little bit more about this, I believe, in the next couple slides, but ownership and accountability of every metric you track is absolutely paramount for the success of your business and the ongoing operational success and service delivery that you strive for. And I think the next slide will actually dip into that a little bit more. Yeah. So standardizing the process starts with the first day that someone comes into your organization. If you have a clean, clear playbook that shows them how to do their job, and it is tailored for their onboarding, for their entry into the organization, they will get online faster. They will be able to do things more quickly, more efficiently, more effectively. They will be so much happier. There is very few things that are more frustrating as a new hire in any organization than to get there and think, what the heck's going on here? No one seems to really know, right? And in a time when hiring is very, very difficult, when hiring is very, very, very costly, particularly in healthcare fields, getting someone up to speed and onboarded quick and operationally efficient, operating at max capacity as soon as possible is critical. The other is just generally aligning folks on the workflow. And we'll talk more about this, but we meet every single week at every level of the organization to talk through what's working, what's not, where are we off track, where are we on track, and how do we quickly realign the teams, whether that means shifting process or shifting resources or shifting personnel to better meet the shared understood goals of the organization. And then, your technology stack, right? Whether you're using a very robust, platform such as ChartRequest provides, you're using a series of spreadsheets, you're using a piece of paper logbook, 3-ring binder with a pen, whatever you're using, optimizing that to meet the goals of the organization are absolutely critical. One more slide, please. All right. And where does this all tie in? For us, this ties in and is rooted in a value system. And, I'm sure everyone on this call has been at enough organizations in their life where they've seen plenty of organizations that say, hey, we're a values-based organization, and we've got this dusty old, value set that we typed up 10 years ago, and it's on, our corporate letterhead. At ChartRequest, we have not done that. We, many years ago, adopted what we call the path value system that you see here. I won't read it to you. I assume everyone here is pretty literate. But, these are values that we hold ourselves to every single day. We talk about them as a national, a global team once a month. We have a meeting tomorrow morning where we will run through these, and every single new hire in our organization tomorrow morning will tell us which of these resonate with them and why. We bring them up in our meetings. We ask people to raise a hand and say, hey, I have, held myself to these values this month, or I have not. And these are not the values that every organization will have, depending on your region of the, specialties, the region of the world, whatever it may be. Yours may be different. And, ultimately, though, if you do not have this shared playbook with shared values alignment, you are going to struggle to get where you need to go because you probably don't even know where that is.
Yeah, actually, so there is another question from the audience that actually dovetails on this very nicely. Question is, for teams that move from email, fax, spreadsheets to a single platform for all requests, what's the biggest decisions leaders can suddenly make that's quick that they couldn't do before?
Interesting, yeah. Gosh, I mean, there's so many downstream impacts, but I think really it's resourcing. It's, are you using the right people in the right roles? One of the things we talk about a lot at ChartRequest, and I think any good organization talks about, is, are the people in each of the roles you have them in the right person for the organization? Are they the right person for the role? And are they being utilized in the places where their time and talents are most valuable? And so frequently we see teams, healthcare provider teams, where people are being forced into roles. Force is not necessarily the right word. Thrust into roles that they were not hired for, that they were not trained for, that they did not go to school for, and that they are not passionate about, right? And it becomes this sort of, no one wants to be left holding the bag on information, exchange, but someone's ultimately got to do it. And if you don't have a good process and or a dedicated team or a dedicated service provider or someone who is doing this, it becomes no one's responsibility, and it becomes thrust on whomever just is unlucky enough to catch the ball that week, right? And when you bring in systems and you bring in process, or you bring in people who can do this work, you free up your team to do the things they are passionate about. And when people are doing things they are passionate about, they do a much, much better job, right? If you are a licensed nurse practitioner and your passion in life is pediatric patient care, and you love these kids and you want them to leave there happy and smiling and healthy and come back and see you in 6 months or a year, whatever it is, when you are doing that work, you are at your best, and you will go home at the end of that day fulfilled and happy and said, yes, you know what, today I did the best I could do and I fulfilled my mission in this world. If you spend half of that day slogging through spreadsheets that list out 300 different aging ROI requests and forms that need to be filled out, and you think this isn't what I went to school for, this isn't what I care about, you will not be fulfilled in that job. You will not go home that night and say, what a great day. I really made a difference in the world. And when you can align people with their values and their passions and their goals, whether it be through technology or systems enhancements, hiring, staffing, whatever it may be, your team will be firing on all cylinders. Your team will be more satisfied. They will stick around longer. You will retain that team. And the downstream effects on your organization are just immeasurable, right? Organizations where people are happy and fulfilled and seeing the impact of their work just operate better, and everyone benefits from it.
Yeah. No, it makes complete sense. I could not agree more. That whole alignment there is just kind of like the theme to help that operation move smoothly. Next slide, please.
Absolutely. So this is where the rubber really hits the road, right? And we talked a little bit about measuring what matters. We talked about outcome over activities. And the third sort of mantra that we repeat at ChartRequest is focus and consistency. Too many organizations, whether they're healthcare, software, whatever it may be, lack focus and consistency. And they try doing a million different things and none really stick, and they fall back into their bad habits, and it's a whole thing. This whole system works. The system of setting KPIs, establishing benchmarks, assigning goals, assigning responsibility, boils down to really one driving principle, right? And that principle is every single person in your organization should have one North Star number that is most important to them. And if you are a healthcare provider, maybe that number is number of patients seen today, or average time spent with a patient, or any number of other things. If you are a release of information specialist, perhaps it is, records released today. If you are answering the phone at the front desk, maybe it's how many times does the phone ring before I get to it, right? I mean, literally it can be as small as that. But having a number that is directly tied to your performance, it is your North Star metric that you focus on every single day, is how you do the best you can at your job. And so to do that, we establish what we call SMART goals. And I'm sure people have seen this before. It's not something we invented, but are my goals specific? Which means, are they very clearly articulated as to what they are? Is it taking our 27-day turnaround and reducing it to 15? That is a specific goal. Is it measurable? Heck yeah, right? 27 to 15, that is a 12-day decrease, or about a 50% decrease in turnaround time. That is very measurable. Is it achievable? Now here's where it gets hard. Is it achievable? We don't always know, but we have to figure out what are the steps and what are the processes we're going to use to get there. Is it relevant? Hey, if you are in information release, heck yeah, turnaround time is relevant, because if you can get that average time to 15, it gives you more time on those really difficult requests, right? You can be a little bit more diligent, more deliberate. You can take a little extra time for something that's super complicated, and you're not going to run up against that 30-day, HIPAA window. And finally, is it time bound? If you sit here in a meeting and you say, hey, our goal is to get from 27 days turnaround to 15, and someone says, and how long? And you say, as soon as possible. You might as well say, I don't care when, because no one feels like this is a time-bound deliverable that is a priority or something that matters to them. They think, yeah, we'll get there when we get there, right? And so by aligning on these goals, by putting these goals into a actionable plan and a dashboard, something, I don't care if it's a whiteboard in your office or a spreadsheet or any number. There's so many technology platforms out here that can share data, laterally across organizations. However you're going to do it, has to be group buy-in, has to have values alignment, mission alignment, and, must have, I think it says here, a sense of urgency. Absolutely, right? Like a sense of urgency, because if nothing is priority, or conversely, and sometimes worse, if everything is a priority, you have no priorities. You have no prioritization. You will spin your wheels. You will focus on activities, and you will not see outcomes. And, this is something that I've seen in every business I've ever worked in my entire life. And, it's something that will always be a challenge. But if you are deliberate and you are focused, you can turn these activities into real impactful outcomes for patients, for revenue, for your business, at large, et cetera. And let's see. Okay, and here's where we get to brag a little bit. So ChartRequest has been around for over 12 years now. And in that time, we have built a lot of metrics, and we have created a lot of tools, both for ourselves, for our clients, for the industry. And we have some pretty great numbers to back it up. One of the things that I really love, on the right side of your screen here, you see these three metrics here. And there are some calculations that we run every single month that measures the impact of what we do in terms of lives saved from reducing errors, from mishandling of medical information, for delays in care, et cetera, et cetera. And we're, our calculation gives us almost 6,000 lives saved over 12 years. Due to improvements in care. And that is, we could just put that on a slide and I'd be happy to show that off, and that'd be the only thing I care about. That is the most important thing we do. We center the patient and the care of patients in every decision we make at ChartRequest. It is the most important North Star metric that this business focuses on: patient care and patient outcomes. We are not at the front lines of healthcare, but release of information, care coordination, the real-time accurate sharing of healthcare data is a key part of value-based care and positive health outcomes. And this is a number that I love and I'm very, very proud of, and I want to see go up every single month. The other is trees saved. Long and short, we are killing the fax machine. I hate faxes. I hate printed out paper. I do take a lot of paper notes, but don't punish me for that. But I mean, we are cutting down on the exchange of physical paper through the mail, through fax machines, et cetera, et cetera. It is a meaningful impact, and it is another one that we are proud to talk about. And then finally, just time saved, right? I mean, this is across, I think 18 million requests processed to date, something like that, 843,000 hours. Divide that out by a 40-hour work week, divide that out by people. I mean, this is significant time saved for healthcare providers across the country, to payers, to legal requester. All of our requester communities is very impactful. And so we have grown the last 12 years to have 170,000 providers across the country in our kind of network of networks. We are very focused right now on interoperability, of continuing to grow that network, of cutting down turnaround time. We have a 5-day door-to-door turnaround time guarantee right now. As of the meeting this morning where we checked our metrics, we are at about half that, and generally are, but that's our guarantee. Very, very few folks in the industry and probably almost no healthcare practices guarantee that or can. So it's something we're very, very proud of. And we've processed 18 million requests since 2012. So if you back the math out of that and break that down to a daily or weekly cadence of records requests, we're doing more records requests in a single day than most of our clients do in a month or even a year. And so we are industry experts. We understand the pitfalls of this industry. We understand the difficulties that providers and our communities face every single day. We understand the risks. We understand the compliance. And, not to toot our own horns too much, but there is no one better at this in the United States at accurately, releasing information to our requester communities. And it's something we're very proud of, and it's something that we are passionate about helping our clients and our customers and their patients and their network with. And so there's a couple ways we do that. Can we take one more slide over, please? Yeah. Oh, well, here's one of our other tools. I'll talk a bit more about that in a second, but this is one of the many tools that we offer to our patients, right? It is very, very hard to take a, Excel document, a spreadsheet, whatever you want to say, and week over week, track these KPIs, track, the metrics that are key to your business, understand how your demand is fluctuating over time, understanding how your team is responding to it over time. And so this is a very cool tool. It's one of our enterprise dashboards that allows organizations to see whether it's their team using our system for releasing information or it's our team using our system for their company's release of information to see, here's how many requests you're getting a day. Here's what our 7-day turnaround is. Here's our 30-day. Here's, what we have not yet processed. Here's exceptions we caught in QA. I could not begin to tell you how many verticals and angles to the metrics that we track and can report on, but this is a robust dashboard that you can't build on your own. I don't care how good you are in Google Sheets. This is a very robust reporting tool that really can change, the face of your business and how you do your health information operations. So can't overstress enough how valuable this thing is. And this is kind of what I just touched on, right? Like, we have what we call our full service platform. That's here on the right. Our team, our software. We have a team of, I honestly don't know how many dozens of folks doing release of information right now on behalf of thousands of clients around the country. We have a guaranteed 5-day turnaround, and we are doing this just about 24 hours a day around the clock at a level that, your individual practice cannot do. We also, though, have the sort of a self-service, our ChartRequest Pro platform, which is your team using our software. You get the exact same multi-million dollars worth of development enterprise software that we use every single day, but with your team doing it. What's really nice about this, one of the things we encounter a lot at conferences and in-person meetings is folks do have a dedicated ROI team, or they have one person who's doing it pretty well or has been doing it for a long time. But what this allows you to do is to do it more efficiently, more effectively. And should you down the line decide that your business does not want to have an ROI team or does not want to have one person stressed because they're doing this and 8 other things, the shift from your self-service, your pro platform, to our full service complete platform is very, very simple. You're already in our system. You're already connected to our fax queue. You're already connected to our support team. We're already handling, the QA on some of your requests, et cetera. So it's a very valuable platform for those who are kind of not sure which direction they want to go. And, we have myriad additional services. I'm sorry, go ahead, Kate.
Oh, no. I was just was going to ask a follow-up question from the audience. There was just one more question that they turned in. Just to kind of round it up, you had mentioned several times in this conversation about the 30-day HIPAA requirement. But with that 30-day turnaround HIPAA requirement, new information blocking enforcement, what should HIM leaders be watching most closely so that they don't end up out of compliance, especially if they're already short-staffed?
Yeah, no, that's a great. I think on a big level, it's understanding the seasonality of your specific specialty, right?
Right.
And to know that, you have to track. Generally, people have a pretty good understanding of, for my specialty, here's kind of when audit season rolls around. Here's when, we have spikes due to just, It's, we're in orthopedics in Colorado, and people come in and start skiing in the winter, and we see more patients, right? People have a general hunch, they have a gut feel of that, but without real metrics, it's very hard to proactively staff against that and resource against that. And so the challenge that arises, of course, is if you don't know these metrics and you can't proactively plan for it, you can't handle the surprises, right? An audit comes up that you were not anticipating, that you were not, thinking was going to happen. Now all of a sudden you have to flex teams around, you have to flex staff around, you have to seasonal staff augmentation, which means you have to not only find people, but bring them up to speed very, very, very quickly to meet the SLAs of those audits, while not forsaking the ongoing patient care, the ongoing release of information for all your other, just because a big audit comes in or a big a seasonality happens, doesn't mean you're forgiven the 30-day window for the rest of your requests, right? Those operations do not stop. And so, really getting these numbers down to a point where with a pretty exacting degree of certainty when and where these potential friction points will occur is kind of the only way that you can protect yourselves against them. And HHS and the OCR complaints, these are not going to get easier or lighter or less restrictive over time. They're going to go the opposite direction as more and more payers and private citizens and others push for better exchange of information, for more interoperability, for faster turnaround times, and a heightened emphasis on value-based care and overall care coordination. So if you don't measure what matters, you don't know what you're doing right, and you don't know what you're doing wrong. And if you're not all playing on the same sheet of music, I promise you it won't sound good at the end of the day.
Yeah. No, that makes complete sense. Makes complete sense. Well, I've really, really enjoyed this conversation and just kind of looking at like, what does that mean to kind of make sure that you're moving in the right direction in one single pane of glass and making sure that you're reading from a single playbook. So I just wanted to encourage anyone who's joining us either now or after the fact that you can find us at chartrequest.com, as well as our LinkedIn profiles are on there for both Everett and myself with any follow-up questions. But any closing words before we sign off, Everett?
Yeah, I would say one of the things that I think I am most proud of ChartRequest for, and one of the things I think we do very, very well is right here on the bottom of the screen, right? A 20-minute feasibility review. We have a team of HIM experts who excel both in ROI and retrieval and record exchange. You need that. Call us up and just tell us what's going on, right? We love to hear your challenges. We always are interested to hear kind of unique new things that are happening in the industry. We would love to say, hey, we'll take a look at your operations. We'll give you, a free consultation, a free, here's some advice on best practices. Here's things we think you could do better. Here's where we see significant bottlenecks impacting your business. We'll do it for free. We just want to learn more about the business, more about the industry, and what makes you tick. And so if it matures into a relationship from there, that's fantastic for all of us. If it doesn't, we're just eager to support and help. And we got a great team who are literally the global experts at this.
Excellent. Couldn't have said it better myself. I really appreciate your time, Everett, and thank you everybody for joining us, and either currently or after the fact. And thanks again, Everett. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kate. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks.